Hey guys, how's it going? It's the Crypto Analyst here, and I hope all of you guys are having a good morning, evening, wherever you guys are from. And welcome back to another Bitcoin technical analysis. And Bitcoin could be set to explode here soon. It's been in a pennant for just over a month and a half now, and it has been building pressure all the way through. And so as we approach the end of this, we ask ourselves the question, is it going to break towards the upside, or is it going to break towards the downside? So today we're actually going to be covering this, as well as a couple potential targets and where I think it's going to go. So if you guys are interested, go and stick around for the video, and do not forget to hit the like and subscribe button, as it does help out the channel a lot. With that being said, let's go ahead and dive right on into this, because again, with this thing being over a month and a half long, it has been building a fair amount of pressure as this has been progressing through. So first things first, guys, I want to go ahead and classify this as what kind of a pennant I believe it to be, and that is a bearish pennant indeed. Now, there's a couple reasonings for this, and eventually, you guys know, earlier I was a little bit bullish on it in these lower areas, but now that we have broken over the 50 EMA, and I've been looking at some of the indicators and oscillators, as well as really just how this pennant is going to play out, I've been turning more and more bearish, again, the higher that this price action gets. Now, I want to go ahead and classify this as a bearish pennant because of the fact that it did, of course, break down, then form this pennant. This is usually a bearish pattern. However, you guys must be asking yourselves right now, generally you guys are asking yourselves, Brendan, hey, pennants are relatively neutral. That's what you've told us before. And yes, they are relatively neutral. However, they can lead ever so slightly one way or another, about a 55-45, or sometimes in a good scenario, a 60-40 case. Again, that is still relatively neutral. Pennants are a relatively neutral formation and continuation pattern. But when we're looking at this and where this could explode, I do believe it has a slightly higher probability breaking towards the downside than it does breaking towards the upside. Now, again, this is a bearish pennant. I believe it to be because, of course, it broke down, then formed the pennant, instead of breaking up and then forming the pennant, or even just going sideways. The fact that it did break down and then form this pennant or symmetrical triangle is really what, again, has me even more bearish than bullish in this case. So when I'm looking at this, you have great touches on your supports. We covered this in the live stream last night, but again, great touches on supports, great touches on resistance, and now that we're getting towards the end of this, about 75% of the way through right now, I am starting to look at potential breakout targets. Now, of course, we do have a couple of targets to the north, being our 200 EMA, are obviously the top of resistance over here in case it does get rejected, or maybe even on the larger scale, if we switch this over to the 1 day, potentially even this giant falling wedge. Now, again, this giant falling wedge would put us probably somewhere around 4,500, 4,600, depending on how fast it climbs, and that's one of my big targets. Now, if this is going to break down, which again is where I believe it to go, I think that we could easily fall back down to a range of either a double bottom or at around 3165, somewhere around this area. Again, the double bottom area is again, I think, going to be a hard place to break, but if it does break, I think we're heading back down to the bottom of this support, which would again be somewhere probably around 27, maybe even 2,800, again, depending upon how fast it falls, probably somewhere in between this 2,750 range. So if I'm looking at this as the bigger picture, this is where I'm really getting my targets from. And if you guys know, I really don't like how this support works. I think that there is a huge gap from, again, from this touch to this touch, which has me a little bit suspicious. There might be a better touch points that we can draw up, but for the sake of time right now, you do have 3 different touch points on a daily chart. So that's kind of why I like this. Again, I don't like this because of the fact of how spread apart they are. So I'm taking that into account as well, right? That while this could be some sort of a support, I'm not counting it as, this one end-all support to save us. Moving this back to the 4-hour, I want to go ahead and take a look at some of the indicators and oscillators when looking at this pennant, because again, I do have other reasoning to be bearish besides the fact that this is just a bearish pennant from the bear flag, excuse me, from the breakdown over here. So moving over into this area, I want to go ahead and take a look at our MACD, and we have a lot of drawing, I believe, from our daily chart. Or for some other things, so we can go ahead and erase this before we get into the daily chart, because we're not going to get into that quite yet. We're going to get into that a little bit later over here. But erasing this, we can go ahead and look. While this thing is and has been coming up for some time now, I believe it is actually getting ready for another steep, maybe not steep, but I think it's getting ready for at least another decent downfall in price action, at least tethered to the US dollar. Well, as I'm looking over here, this is starting to round off. I believe these indicators and oscillators are starting to both round off over in this area. It's starting to look like it's starting to get a little bit exhausted, and I can see this creating double bearish divergence, and I can see your oscillators both be pointing downwards pretty soon here, as again, I do think your oscillators are going to round off, and I think your indicators have already started and are beginning to point downwards as well. Now, this is the 4-hour MACD. If we're taking a look at the 4-hour RSI, this is where things, I think, really start to get bearish for me, because of the fact that we have started breaking up here, and while this has capped over here, again, it's not impossible that this can't do something like this and keep heading back up, right? You know, it's very, very possible that something like that can happen, but for the time being, this is what I'm seeing on my, well, actually, it'd be better for us to draw this. What I'm really seeing on our RSI over here is this. Of course, high swing low, lower high swing low, and then another third one in a row. It's telling me, all right, well, now you have 3 consecutively higher lows on separate swings of your 4-hour RSI. Again, that is not a generally good thing to see. It's a very, very bearish thing to see. This is what led us to some nice price action over here, is really quite the opposite. But now that we're seeing, you know, the opposite case scenario over here being, all right, consistent higher or consistent lower highs on your 4-hour RSI, it's gotten me a little bit worried. And again, could be looking for a potential shorting opportunity on Bitcoin in the future. Again, we're going to have to watch this closely, right? This thing could reverse. It looks like it's trying to, at least in some way, but for the time being, this is pointing down, and this is what's showing to me, hey, this could be a bearish breakout for Bitcoin in the not so distant future. So I don't want to be too pessimistic, so let's go ahead and take a look at the one-day charts before we talk about anything else, and take a look at our one-day indicators and oscillators for things that could be a little bit more long-term. So looking at this, what I'm seeing right now is, again, this is actually looking slightly bullish. Your oscillators are both pointing up. You know, for the most part, they're rounding off over here. And your MACD is actually very, very neutral for the time being. It does have ever so slightly bullish divergence, nothing really significant. And your RSI isn't looking all that bad either. This starts to get a little bit worse, though, when you take into account that since that has come up to this point, it can definitely retrace down here some. But I would say that this RSI, again, is a generally healthy thing to see. However, it is not the one end-all, say-all fact for cryptocurrency and Bitcoin more specifically. So when we're looking at this, this could, you know, again, this is not just like because we have the support line. That's not, I talked about this in the live stream last night. Just because we have that line there, that does not mean that we can't break it and that we're going to continue to hold it. All that simply means is that showing that there have been lower levels of negative momentum up to this point, saying, all right, well, that definitely is a bullish case for Bitcoin. But at any point, this can really turn around and come back down here. Now, I personally think that if this RSI does take a tank, it's going to be a higher low than this point over here. And I think that that's going to really start creating good positions for people to long, is me especially to long this, is when this RSI gets a lower or a higher low, you know, probably again somewhere, I would say anywhere in, you know, this area. Now, when that happens, again, that's going to signal to me that it could be a very good potential long position after this thing rounds off and starts pointing back upwards. Again, signifying me that there's daily bullish divergence, daily double bullish divergence on my RSI, which is, again, something that is going to prompt me to long more so than I would right now. So I hope that did make sense. That's just really why I am, you know, somewhat bearish for Bitcoin. Again, there's no sign saying right now that this can, let's go ahead and move this back to the 4 hours so we can see it more clearly. There's no really sign here saying that I would ideally want to long this area. This breakout was skeptical. I'm very, very skeptical of this breakout. I don't know too much of what to think about it yet. I'm going to be watching it closely. I do not have any trades in currently, but I am expecting this pennant, or at least, you know, Bitcoin to probably have a bearish breakout. Maybe not immediately, but I do expect it in the not so distant future of Bitcoin. So that's just where I'm standing on Bitcoin right now. Again, guys, nothing I said in this video is legal, tax, or financial advice in any way, but I do want to clarify just how, you know, really this can break out. So I hope you guys did enjoy this. If you guys did, do not forget to hit the like and subscribe button, as it does help out the channel a lot. But until next time, guys, I will see you in the next video.